participants are as well.
More rubber.
We're going to get started right now with Ray Hernandez. And of all of the backgrounds and credentials of people that I've been given today, we've had some whoppers. Ray caught me completely off guard. He studied at City College, City University of New York Law. He is a University of California at Berkeley PhD candidate. He is a graduate of Cornell University's Master's Program in Urban Planning and attended Rutgers College, where he received his Bachelor of Arts in History and English. His work history is remarkable, and he is a highly respected tax attorney. He lives in Florida with his family. And, you know, Ray, when we were talking before, and I'm thinking, in this world of people that have had these experiences, there's no archetype. Everybody is so extraordinarily different in their background. They're from every socioeconomic background, every ethnicity, every, you know, historic kind of background. And if I read this into the record, I'm going to use up half your time. Ray Hernandez is a remarkable, remarkable man, and I'm glad to have him as a new friend and colleague. And his presentation, it's a shame that these seats don't have seat belts, because some of you might want to strap yourself in. Ladies and gentlemen, Ray Hernandez, please give him a warm welcome.
Steve, more up front, and that's back here. That's it.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm just a lowly, humble servant here. I came here to talk about FREE, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about myself, because it seems that the vast majority of individuals here are experiencers. I myself am an experiencer. So I want to talk a little bit about my background. And at first I thought it was quite unique. And now that I've heard so many stories, you know, it's just run of the mill. But let me tell you a little bit about my background. First of all, I grew up in West New York, New Jersey, which is right across the Hudson River. It's a working class neighborhood that I grew up in. Both my parents were factory workers earning minimum wage. I was one of these types of young individuals that I never studied. I never did homework, but yet I always did very well in school. So that was my early background. I then went on to, as Peter said, to Cornell. I did very well at Cornell, and I got a master's at Berkeley, at Rutgers. Then I went to Cornell for a master's. Then I went to Berkeley for a PhD, which I never finished. What's called ABD, all but dissertation. I did all of my coursework, all of my exams, and then when I was teaching at the New School for Social Research, my ex-wife got a brain aneurysm, and I had basically a year and a half more to finish my dissertation. And I had 2 little babies. Her mother had just recently retired. Her sister was still in high school, so I basically had to give up my dissertation. But basically my intellectual mindset is still as an academic. I currently work as an estate tax attorney with the IRS in Miami, Florida. I've been doing that for 15 years. So don't be scared of me unless you die with net assets of more than $5 million. My experiences started very recently. Before then, I was an atheist, agnostic at best. I was a material rationalist. I saw, you know, my whole reality through logic and reason. And then in March of 2001, my whole world came crashing down. And let me tell you a little bit about that, so you can understand a little bit about my crazy reality, which most of you can sympathize with. Whoops, no, that's not the program I want. Let me see. We had it before, I apologize. Okay, thank you. Well, let me talk a little bit while you're doing that. In March of 2012, we had a Jack Russell Terrier that was 16 years old. That dog was basically our first daughter, our first child. We waited about 7 years before our daughter was born. So that dog was pampered. So even though it was 16 years old, we were still trying to keep its quality of life going. Then on a Saturday afternoon at about 6 p.m., it had a stroke. It was totally paralyzed from the neck down. We had a friend of ours that came by and saw the dog and looked, what's going on with Nena? Nena means little girl in Spanish. And so we picked her up and she wasn't moving from the neck down. So she wasn't in stress. We decided to wait till Monday to bring her to our vet, and then we wanted to do a ceremony for her and put her to sleep, in a spiritual format. So what happened the next morning at 6 o'clock, the dog woke my wife up. The dog was barking and barking, but still my wife picked her up. She wasn't moving at all. So then my wife carried her down the stairs. And when she carried our dog down the stairs, let me see, are we getting close? Okay, my wife saw this thing here. Perfect timing. These entities up there always have perfect timing with everything. So my wife, being the good hardcore Catholic that she is, she knelt down, started praying, and in her head she said, if you're a bad spirit, get the hell out of here. If you're a good spirit, stick around and please help my doggie. Says, just don't let her suffer, okay? And she thought it might have been the Virgin Mary. I don't see the Virgin Mary there, but for a Mexican Catholic, that was the first thing that pops into your head when you see something like this. It was literally approximately 2 feet wide by 3 feet in height. Then when she was communicating that, in her head, those wishes, the white fluorescent light shot out from the sides. Then these green lights in the middle then zoomed on her. And then that's when she freaked out. And Ray! And it was 6 in the morning on a Sunday, and I said, leave me alone, I want to sleep. And she was yelling and yelling, and I didn't pay any attention to her, Finally, after like 10 minutes, she comes upstairs, drags me downstairs. She didn't tell me what it was, okay? Then when I got downstairs, I didn't see what she saw. I saw this thing, okay? I call it a floating plasma being. Being because it did things to me, like an intelligent being. Basically, it was like this wide, this height, like a plasma, multicolored plasma, semi-translucent, 4 feet off the ground, 1 feet off the wall, okay? And again, in hindsight, I know why I acted the way I acted, but when it was, after it occurred, I had no idea why I did this. This is what I did, okay? I looked at it, squinted my eyes, bullshit. Then I walked up the stairs, okay, went back to my bed, folded my hands, and looked straight up at the ceiling for 15 minutes like this. Okay? After 15 minutes, it's sort of like the hypnotist said, wake up, kid, we're done with your wife and the dog, now you can come out of it. And when I woke up, I was like, holy, I won't curse that, but holy, what the hell just happened, And I ran downstairs, and what I saw was my wife, hallelujah, hallelujah, the angels cured her, the angels cured her, the angels cured her. And the dog was running around like a puppy, was jumping up and down, running all over the place, and my wife, hallelujah, like she was in a Pentecostal church or something like that, And in my head, I was like, what the hell just happened, And since that day, what happened, I think I joined MUFON like about a week later, because I had no, and I have the receipts. I didn't even know what MUFON was. I saw a couple of shows of ancient aliens or something like that. I was totally out of the scene. The New Age movement, those are ex-hippies, You know, like myself, I considered myself that years ago, trying to find the new vogue. You know, that's, you know, I was totally out of the loop here to what was going on. I immediately went into the internet, started, you know, reading anything I could on the internet. All of this confused me more. You know, they're demons, they're devils, they're gods, they're, you know, Anunnakis, they're this, and I was like, you know, all over the place. What the hell's going on, you know? And then what happened was, during the next 4 months, my wife started to see huge crafts at odd hours, at different times. And let me just give you an example of one. The dog, Nina, now like a little spring little chicken, even though she's equivalent to like 95 years old, you know. She woke my wife up at a magical hour, 3:30 in the morning, okay? And then instead of going in the back through to our doggy door, she wanted to go into the front, into our front door. My wife opens the front door. What she heard was like a 747 jet that was right above her. This huge loud noise for about a minute and a half. Then it stopped, and when it stopped, she saw this huge craft from one side of our cul-de-sac all the way to the other side of the cul-de-sac, 2 blocks away, more or less. So that was like bigger than a football field. Then the next day she tells me, "Ay, mi amor," and it was in Spanish. She said, "I saw, an angelic craft." It had colors like the stained glass windows just from our church. And they paid me a visit. The angel paid me a visit, you know. I'm not mocking my wife, you know, just, you know, translating what she was saying. And to me, it was like, you saw what? An angelic craft? You know? and so anyway, she started seeing lots of these crafts. In Mexico, roughly in July, this thing's July of 2012, she was there for about a month and a half with her family. Now I know they're all experiencers. Before, mother-in-law didn't say anything. Now I know all her sisters, some of her nieces, and her mom. Her mom's a big-time experiencer. Anyway, she was up on the roof of her sister's house in the city of Veracruz, 9 o'clock at night, looking, you know, at the sky, and she tried to call down a craft, the angelic craft, to see them again, okay? She was up there about an hour, nothing happened, you know? She went downstairs. An hour and a half later, at the 11 o'clock news, her sister started yelling at her, "Dulce, Dulce!" And she ran downstairs. Front news, at 11 o'clock news, UFO craft is the picture of it, stops traffic for an hour over the Veracruz airport. They had tons of reporters at the airport, reporters at the harbor where people were seeing it. They had witnesses, they had videos, the whole works. My wife stayed shut, you know. "Oh, it was me, I called them." No, she was quiet the whole time. The next day was a birthday party, baptism of her niece. She hooked up with a cousin that she hadn't seen in 20 years. Then the niece, because since that was the topic of conversation at the baptism party, the niece told the group at the table that she talks to these beings and these crafts. You know, for years, she's seen tons of these crafts. Then my wife pulled her to the side and said, "Look, this is what's been happening to me." So then they said, okay, they did an experiment. They said at 9 o'clock, because each of them were going to go in different directions. My wife was going to go with another sister up into the mountains where she lived. Okay, at 9 o'clock, let's call a craft, and then we'll compare notes the next day. Well, not at 9 o'clock, but at 9:30, my wife was in a 2-car caravan. This craft came by, beamed a blue light in front of the lead car for like a minute or two, and then took off. That was seen by my wife's sister. She's an attorney. There was 3 dentists in that group. There was 2 nieces. Okay, so it was seen by many folks. My wife didn't tell me anything. Okay, she came by to the house like a month later because she knew I was crazy with all this stuff, you know, on the internet, you know. And she said, "All I'm going to do is add more fuel to the fire, so I'm not going to tell them anything." Okay. What had happened was a friend of mine had gotten all these parking tickets, and me being the good pro bono attorney for half the members at my church and all my friends, you know, I said, "Come on by, I'll do a motion to consolidate all these tickets like that you go to court once." He called me up, "Hey Ray, I got the tickets." I said, "Okay, come on by." It was 9 o'clock at night. So I'm here waiting outside, and we live in a cul-de-sac, a very quiet neighborhood, no traffic at all, because there's like a no-through street even coming in. And so I'm looking, I'm never in the front, and so I'm looking and I'm reminded of that craft that my wife saw, that angelic craft, okay? And I remember the day before I had seen a video of this man that had called down these UFOs. And during the day, what it was like a little speck that was moving in the sky. So I said, the hell with it, let me try, you know? And it was like a joke, okay? It was a joke. Yet it turned out to be more real than I could have imagined. And so for 15 minutes, I'm like, oh, I want to see the beautiful angelic craft that my wife saw, the one with the stained glass windows. My wife saw you, but I didn't see you. Please appear, I want to see you. And I was sincere, but half jokingly, you know. And then I did it for 15 minutes. I was looking around the whole time. After 15 minutes, I said, I'm really losing it. This is the last straw. I can't be going crazy like this anymore. Poof, on top of my next door neighbor's house. This picture doesn't even give it justice, because I should have taken that photo way back, because it was actually like 4 times taller, okay? It was pretty much the same width. What it was like this. So it went back like 2 blocks, because I could tell, because it inclined. You see that tail at the end? That was actually like 2 blocks long, because there was these huge trees where that tail was there. And what it was composed of was thousands and thousands of oblong light streaks with energy in the middle, light energy in the middle, okay? What popped into my head, and again, now I know they popped it into my head, okay? What it was, the voice of my daughter. Daddy, you and Mommy have seen UFOs. Next time you guys see a UFO, let me know. I want to see them, right? That's what popped into my head. Rationally thinking, you don't want to get a 10-year-old involved in this stuff, you know, because, you know, you don't know what the hell's going to happen, right? No. Shkare! I'm calling down my daughter. My daughter pops at the window. What is it, Daddy? There's a UFO out here. There's a UFO out here. So she like books out, you know, and she's there like in 10 seconds. And she and I are looking at it. What is that, Daddy? I said, it's a UFO. It's in hiding. I didn't want to use the word cult, you know? And so then both of us are watching this thing. You know, she wasn't scared. We weren't scared at all. We were being entertained. There's all these lights that are going around. All of a sudden, my friend doesn't come alone. He comes with his wife. First of all, he's Mexican. When he's hardcore Mexican, that they'll do the rosary for 10 hours straight, you know, if someone dies at a funeral, you know, that type of hardcore Mexican. She's from Colombia, just as worse, you know. Okay, so these are hardcore Catholics. Their 17-year-old daughter is always came with them. So now we got 5 people, okay? Both of them are college graduates. What the first thing they do? What the hell is that, right? And I said, you guys know what that is. No, it can't be. It's the lights behind the street killing. You know, it's beaming off because it's a totally cloudy night, okay? It's the lights beaming off the clouds. I said, please, you know? And it's doing all these thousands of oblong streaks all over in it, you know? Oh, it's got to be lightning, you know? Finally, atmospheric conditions, okay? And then in my head, I was saying to myself, they don't believe you. They don't believe you. You know, like talking to these beings, right? All of a sudden, the light patterns changed. This is the drawing that my daughter did. She had just turned 10 years old. Okay, so it's somewhat similar. This is the drawing that Luis did. Okay, I even have it. Luis, 48 years old. That was in August of 2012. And that's Sandra, his wife. Again, this thing was like 4 times taller and went all the way back. It was huge. What happened was, like, after 10 minutes of them criticizing this thing, you know, all the streaks of light stopped. What was replaced was thousands of stars, like 10 times the size of Venus. And what it was like flickering all over, like that. Okay? All over. Undoubtedly, these are not atmospheric conditions. Okay? So there was no doubt what it was. Okay? And then, again, I could never figure out why they acted that way, but this is what my friends did. After 10 minutes of seeing something you're never going to see in your life, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, oh, we got to go. We got things to do. Okay? And I didn't even question it. Oh, okay, take care. Thanks for giving me thanks for coming by. Don't worry about those tickets. I'll take care of those tickets. It was like, we weren't in this reality. We were like somewhere else. But yet, while you're there, you're thinking that you're fully cognizant. My daughter and I then stayed watching this thing for another 15 minutes. All these stars. And all I needed was just a lounge chair, some Coronas, something else to munch on, and that was the scene. We were being entertained. I wasn't scared at all. It was just, Then all of a sudden, my daughter goes, "Daddy." Oh, no. Then I felt like I was being attacked by mosquitoes. I was wearing shorts. And after like 1 minute of being bitten up by these mosquitoes, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I said, "Come on, Scotty, let's get out of here. These mosquitoes are killing me." Well, this thing is still going on, right? So I carry my daughter, we go inside the house. 5 minutes after we get inside the house, my daughter goes to me, "Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside." And all of a sudden, it's like the hypnotist said, "Okay, kid, wake up." And all of a sudden, I'm like, holy shit, what the hell, just happened, And so I quickly grab my camera, grab my video, I run outside, nothing, okay? And there was no noise to this, no noise to it at all whatsoever, okay? Then, that's nothing. The interesting stuff comes after this, okay? And this is a little nuts, but everyone here can understand it, okay? Before, I had been totally going to the internet, okay? Reading every type of cockamamie story that was out there about what this phenomenon is so-called, what it's about. And I had ordered 50 UFO books. I read like about 20 of them, okay? Since that day, I stopped cold turkey going to the internet. I stopped cold turkey reading those UFO books. Sorry, Mr. Friedman. I did read your book though. Yours was one of those that I read. And you know what I did? For 4 months straight, all I did was to read books on near-death experiences and consciousness studies. Don't tell me why. Now I know why. But back then, I had no idea, okay? I would order 10 books at a time from Amazon. I would stay up every night till like 4 in the morning, reading these books, sleeping like 4 hours a day. And then, when there was 2 books left, I would order 8 more from Amazon. I learned what an ebook was back then. I didn't even know what it was. I would get the cheaper version of the ebooks, and I would be reading those, but mainly the hardcover books. That's what I enjoyed. A voracious reader, okay? I was an expert on near-death experiences and consciousness studies. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Edgar Mitchell is now on our advisory board, but I knew everything about his book and all the members of the Institute for Noetic Studies, even quantum physics materials that were associated with consciousness studies. So I went berserk, okay? My wife thought I was going nuts. And here's the reason why. These ETs had a mission for me. Here I was, total atheist, material rationalist, and they had convert me quickly, okay? The tools that they used was this mechanism. What happened was 4 months later, my daughter had a fever. I'd never bring her to the doctor. My wife always brought her to the doctor. So I had never even met this doctor, okay? She was from Venezuela. Out of my mouth, as I was saying it, I was like, why in the hell am I telling this woman this thing? Why am I saying this? My head was thinking that, but my mouth, what's coming out of my mouth was something totally different. Excuse me, doctor, have you ever heard of near-death experiences? I've just finished reading over 300 books on this topic. Out of those 300 books, approximately 50 to 70 of them were written by medical doctors like yourself. And out of those, approximately 15 were written by professors in medical schools. So this is a valid phenomenon that's been studied scientifically and something that you need to know about. All of a sudden, her eyeballs pop out. Okay? And so I said, oh my God, I offended the hell out of this woman, So excuse me, doctor, I didn't mean to offend you. No, you didn't offend me. How do you know I had one? Okay? This is the very first person I ever talked to about near-death experiences. Total stranger. As I was saying it, I was like, why in the hell am I telling this total stranger, this thing, okay? She then goes into details about her near-death experiences. I won't give you the specifics because we don't have the time, but she described the doctor, the nurse, what they looked like. She repeated verbatim for 15 minutes the conversation that her mother and father had. Okay, that was a Friday. The next day, Saturday, we were at a church dinner. There were about 100 couples there. We sat at a table with 4 couples. My wife sat next to this lady who was from Mexico, and her husband is an MRI technician, and he's Cuban like I was. So we started talking, you know, get to know each other, like 5 minutes of small chat. After 5 minutes, excuse me, sir, have you ever heard of near-death experiences? You know, and I repeated the same thing. And in my head, I was like, you know, why am I telling this guy? You know, the second person I ever talked to, you know, and out of the blue, I'm saying this. His eyeballs pop out. Then he tells me about a near-death experiences that his mother died in his arm a year ago, okay? Then he told me the story that when she was resuscitated, she said, oh, you know, you were crying above me, I was looking down at you, you told me this, you told me that, you know, the details. Then on top of that, this big black guy, 6'3", 300 pounds, came crashing through the door, followed by a short white woman with a long ponytail. He was like, those are the paramedics, you know? and she went through the whole, you know, details of what had happened. And now, at that point, I was like, holy, you know what, something heavy is going down, you know? And like, I knew it was going down, but I was like, I still, you know, didn't accept it, you know, totally accept it, okay? The next day, Sunday, I went to visit my so-called atheist father, okay? So I thought he was an atheist. Yeah, I'd never seen him in church, you know? And in Spanish, he was like, you know, God damn this, God damn that, you know? And so, 83 years old at that time, bedridden, he's got every type of disease you can name, right? I said, you know, I need to tell my father what's going on. You know, it's very, very important, okay? So I told him what went on for the last two ladies, Friday and Saturday. I didn't tell him about the UFO stuff, you know, but I did tell him what went on with the doctor and the fellow at the church. He goes in Spanish, eso me pasó a mí, which literally translates, that happened to me. And I was like, say what? And I was like, you never told me that. He said, remember 15 years ago when I had open heart surgery, quadruple bypass, he floated above his body, okay? And he had the full works, including a life review, okay? He saw his deceased father, mother, my grandparents, and his brother, okay? Went to the tunnel, the light, saw his own body. He said he was up there at least 20 years. I said, 20 years? What are you talking about, 20 years? I was up there at least 20 years because God showed me all the good that I had done and all the bad that I had done. And I not only saw it with my brain, but with the consciousness of the person that I was affecting, okay? And then I talked to my mother, you know, oh no, and I said, what did God, after that, what did he tell you? He goes, how the hell did I know? That was 15 years ago, you know? His conversation with God, you know? And so I turned to my mother, and at that point, I was like freaking out. And I was like, you know, I said, Mom, you know, you never told me this. Pop never told me that. She said, we only spoke about it once, and that was at the hospital when he was just woken up. And she said, oh, you're all agitated. It's the medication, you know. You just come out of, you know, heart surgery. You know, go back to sleep. Don't get agitated. And she said that was the first and only time that she heard my father's story until, you know, that day. So tell me, if you're a statistician, okay, you like to play the lottery, right? You know the odds and the statistics, you know. What are the statistics, the odds of the very first three people you talk to about near-death experiences? 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, okay? After you've been guided by these ETs to read over 300 books on this topic, all of these three people, you hit the lottery on each one. What are the statistics to that, okay? So on the way home, right, I looked up at the sky, and I said to God, which I firmly believe now, as of that date, and to these ETs, I said, congratulations. You have managed to get an individual that was a complete atheist, rational materialist, into turning him into someone that has an unequivocal belief in God, in the spirit world, and life after death than any Catholic priest in Miami, Florida. Okay? And to this day, I still feel that way. It's not a belief, it's not faith, I know. Okay? And so to me, that was a blessing, and it should be a blessing to everyone here. Because we are spirit, and that's an important message that I want to convey to everyone. So that was a little bit about my crazy experiences. It goes on and on and on. Since that day that I saw that thing, it's just, it opened up a whole avenue of paranormal and contact. But I will skip all of that. Let me talk to all of you about in May of 2013, okay? May of 2013, I was driving down a major thoroughfare highway right next to the airport in Miami. Up until then, I had only been speaking with one individual, Christina Knowles. She had worked with MUFON, with Joe Montaldo's organization, and she was the only, vehicle I had, someone to talk to. And so, all of a sudden, I got what I call an ET telegram. I think Debbie talked about getting a voice inside her head. Well, I got a voice inside my head, and I got a video with it too. So it's like double the experience for the same price. And my video was very similar to what Audrey told me that she experienced. What I got was that I needed to do something. The way I interpreted it was to do a documentary or an organization, okay? And it had to be about, and dig this, the relationship between ETs, the spirit world, and quantum physics, okay? Now, I might be smart in writing papers and things like that, but when it came to math, forget it. I disdained mathematics, physics. The only physics I knew were the physics that I was reading with the consciousness studies works, and the pseudo physics that I was reading associated with consciousness studies. And so I immediately called Christina, and she said, chill out, pull to the side. I can't. I'm in the middle of a traffic jam, And visually, what I saw was a spinning wheel, okay, like The Price is Right. And each slot was a different paranormal phenomenon. Out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, telepathy, you name the paranormal phenomenon, including the ET, contact experience, all of that was spinning around, and I was in the middle, just looking up, because it was big. It was spinning all around me like that, and what was holding everything together was quantum physics, okay? That same night, I don't know if any of you know who Mary Rodwell is. Mary Rodwell is very, very famous in Europe and in Australia. Mainly in the US, she's not that well known because she doesn't give a lot of lectures here. But she just spent pretty much the whole summer in Europe. She gave 4 lectures in England and 1 in Paris, France. So she's very well known outside of the US. Anyway, I got an email from Mary. Dear Ray, I apologize for responding to this email that you sent me 5 months ago, but I find the experiences that you and your daughter and your friends totally stimulating. I've never heard of anyone having such a close contact with a ship, for such a long time. And I recently asked Mary, I said, Mary, do you go back 5 months to check someone's email? She says, Ray, I can barely keep up with one day's email. How the hell am I going to go back 5 months? And I said, what do you explain that? And she started laughing. She said, Ray, you know what happened. So all of a sudden, 5 months later, I got the same day that this happened, I get this email from Mary. She then mentioned about a friend of hers, Dr. Rudy Shields, who's a professor of astrophysics at Harvard. That's a good friend of hers. And she came here, I think it was in 2010. Maybe Dennis Briefer can elaborate on the date. What year was that, Dennis?
Well, that sounds about right.
2010, okay.
I'm fuzzy too.
And were you there?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where she met Rudy Shields, okay, and learned, that he was in astrophysics, that he had an interest in this type of work. So to me, we're like one ear, one out the other, I didn't pay much attention to it. The next day at 9:30, I got a phone call. Hello, is this Ray Hernandez? Yes, who is this? Oh, this is Rudy Shields. Who? So then he told me who he was, and I said, oh my God, this guy's calling me at 9:30 in the morning. For an hour and a half, he spoon-fed me like a little baby quantum physics, and how quantum physics explains all the paranormal phenomena, including how ETs go through walls, appear, disappear, and also the topic of consciousness, okay, which a lot of us are dealing with, the whole paranormal aspects, the spiritual aspects, okay? And then he says, look, Ray, I encourage you to do an organization. It's fundamentally important, it's needed, especially with the science component of it. I will be your science advisor. Just let me know what you want to do. It didn't even come across my mind to form an organization. So he was the first person to make that hint. He then said he's very dear friends with Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Okay, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, let me put this other window back up. If I could get some help here. The spiritual website. No, get rid of that, the spiritual website. I apologize. I'm not a computer person. So let me talk a little bit. So anyway, he then says he's very good friends with Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Now I knew who Edgar was because I had read all these books on consciousness studies. And Edgar is considered the father of modern consciousness studies. And Edgar is a genius among geniuses. He has a PhD in physics from MIT. Besides being the sixth man on the moon, he's also one of the main adherents to the quantum hologram theory of our reality. And he's done numerous studies on telepathy, on consciousness. He really is many hats that he wears. And plus everyone knows that he grew up in Roswell, that whole background of him publicly saying that this is a real phenomenon. So anyway, Rudy gave me Edgar's telephone number. Now I knew who Edgar was, and I was scared, you know what, to give this guy a call. You know, it's like you're talking to a demigod or something like that, you know. And so for 4 hours, I hesitated giving Edgar a call. Finally, late in the afternoon, I worked up the courage to give him a call. Oh, I've been expecting your phone call. You know? And I was like, what? This guy's got telepathy too, you know? I don't know where he was coming from. What happened was that Rudy sent him an email. He had just finished about an hour before speaking with Rudy. And Rudy said that this is someone that you need to take, seriously and to converse with him. So I told him a little bit of my experience. He told me a little bit about his experience. And I told him, I fully know, your background. Then he invited me to his house, okay? I've been to Edgar's house 5 different times. Each time he tells me more and more and more, which I won't discuss the details, but Edgar is a fascinating individual. At that point, he told me that what Rudy said, that I need to form an organization, that he will be a science advisor together with Rudy. So it was already now 3 days since I had my ET telegram, okay? So I immediately emailed Mary Rodwell, Christina Knowles, who was the experiencer that I've been communicating with like about 3 or 4 months. And then I told them what had happened the last 2 days. And then I said, look, we need to form an organization. And we formed FREE. Mary Rodwell actually came up with the name, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. This black hole here came from Rudy. Rudy is the world's leading expert in black holes. Rudy says that consciousness, what we understand as consciousness, comes from these, that consciousness is the way, that these black holes, the way to view them is that they are God's neurons. Okay? That information goes to these black holes, the information gets processed, and they get spurned out. And again, it all deals with the 0 point energy field of consciousness streams. It gets into the quantum hologram theory of physics and the whole physics of consciousness. So I won't get into that, but basically just to let you know that our theme of the black hole came from Rudy. Let me tell you a little bit about FREE. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about definitional terms that we use in FREE. First of all, we are defining ET contact as any type of contact with non-human intelligent beings, even though our primary focus is on UFO-related contact. For example, someone has a near-death experience. If you review the literature like I reviewed it, these experiencers of near-death experiences will tell you that reality that they had was more of a reality than right here, okay? That while they were up there wherever they were, it was like they're much more conscious, much more material, more fully conscious of that reality than what we have right here. So what is it to say to us that these are not, ETs, okay? The people that have out-of-body experiences, okay, they encounter, many of them, non-human intelligent beings, specifically the individuals that have mystical travel, okay? We have 2 members of our group that have been doing out of body, which then resulted into mystical traveling, going into the matrix and encountering ETs. After a couple of years, these ETs that they've been encountering with then began to materialize right here. Okay, so what what characteristics are we going to be making here? Okay, so that's why we're very, very open in terms of what is considered an ET. Also, the focus of our group is not on abductions, okay? There's several organizations that are out there that's the main focus is abductions. Our focus is on ET contact. There are many, many individuals that I've spoken here in this room that have not been cognizant of an abduction, that their experiences have been benevolent, okay? A lot of the spiritual, the New Age folks have had a lot of these similar experiences. So our perspective is not to be exclusive. We want to focus on everyone that's had interactions, contact with non-human intelligent beings, but yet the primary focus is on UFO. Also, speaking with a lot of members of our organization, of our board of advisors, I would say the majority believe that again, putting numbers and percentages is very difficult, that the contact experiences have not been abductions from the vast majority of people that they've been associated with. So again, we want to keep the options broad in terms of our perspective. Now, a little bit about free.